Aaron Bihl, dude. Welcome to the Pave The Way podcast. I'm looking forward to having you on, bro. I know this has been a long time coming.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm excited. I know we connected probably end of last year, beginning of this year, and
Yeah.
kind of BS with you on Instagram back and forth a little bit, and excited to be on here and talk business.
Yeah, bro. Absolutely. I actually saw you as a guest on. I've known you. I knew you before this, but I saw you were a guest on one of my favorite podcasts I listened to, the Real Deals or whatever. So I'm like, oh man, this guy's getting on the Real Deals. Like he is the real deal, get it? So
Yeah.
anyway,
So yeah, I mean, I use Elliot and those guys' call center and stuff, and kind of have become pretty good friends with him as well. And honestly, I mean, your podcast and Real Deals are, two I listen to every week that I feel like are great resources for people doing direct to seller marketing. And I feel like you have unique guests that I don't just like hear on every podcast, kind of doing the podcast tour. So
thanks, man. I try. Now look at you. You're a guest on the show that you listen to,
right?
Which is crazy, Well, listen, dude. So how did you like, let's just tell me a little bit about, or tell the listeners a little bit about, like, I know you're from Ohio. So like, how did you end up as a full-time real estate investor in San Antonio, Texas, coming from Ohio? Like, man, that's pretty wild. So tell me the story.
Yeah, for sure. So I moved to Texas 8 or 9 years ago out of college and work. I got a job in oil and gas because that's what you do in Texas. And then probably worked in kind of corporate environment there at a few different oil and gas companies for 5 or 6 years. And then it kind of just got to the point where, I got burnt out on the corporate life and things not moving at the pace I want them to. And then like everyone else in the world, found bigger pockets and some other real estate podcasts. And, my company was bought out. All of these things kind of aligned. And yeah, just made the jump. I got my real estate license. I tell people now thought I was prepared to quit my job, and I wasn't at all. So I was like, oh, I'll do like retail, and then I'll learn how to work with investors and maybe this off market stuff. But I had no freaking clue. So that was about 2.5 years ago. And then, so I linked up with a broker here who, did off-market transactions, did some retail stuff for a while, and then, learned a lot from there, and then did 2 or 3 deals there and was kind of like, okay, this is cool. I kind of, know how this works. I don't really love giving away half of these when each one has been 10 grand more than the last.
Yeah.
And, really started diving into that are doing direct to seller marketing and figuring that out and trying to figure out the consistent side, how to make that consistent. Cause I was getting deals and doing fine. But I never knew they were coming from. So I scrolling the Facebook groups, hoping to find one of the deals that's decent, or I heard that people get cold callers. So I had a cold caller and got a deal off that. And just completely random, with no sort of standardization to where a deal is going to come from, but kind of got some here and there.
Yeah. Dude, I know how that feels, man. I mean, it's you're the business, but you don't it's not predictably systematized, which I think no one's perfect at all. Even these huge guys who are doing a lot of business, if you really got them drunk on whiskey and set them down, they'd be like, fuck, I don't fucking know what I'm doing, man. I'm just fucking spray. That's the truth, because I know a lot of them. Yeah. Yeah. I think everyone's always just trying to get.
But it was always one of those things when that that broker I worked at, it was people always wanted these direct to seller deals.
Yeah.
No one really knew how to get them. So I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. Whether it's, mail or ads or, whatever that looks like, I got to figure out some way to, have consistency with this. And then I, joined a friend of ours group. Ryan Dossie has kind of a mastermind coaching group, and then various other groups and all kinds of stuff from there, the last probably 1.5 years. And then as of today, probably doing consistently probably 3 or 4 deals a month, something like that.
That's awesome, bro. That's awesome. And that's in a market in San Antonio that is not not the easiest market to have consistency in, and you're doing great volume there as a, you know, smaller operation. You're not one of these hedge funds buying 17 properties a week. So when it comes to your marketing now, like, let's actually, before we get into that, let's talk about like, what does your exit strategies look like? Because I know you're just not a wholesaler, you're not just a rental property guy. So like let's say on a good month, you got 4 or 5 properties, what do your exit strategies look like in your local market down there in Texas?
Yeah, great question. So I kind of hate wholesaling. I don't really like it. I take down almost everything. I have a few people who I'll wholesale stuff to if it's just a house I really don't want to own.
Yeah.
But I have lenders that will do 100% financing, and kind of anything that's a deal I have the ability to take down. So from there, it's kind of depends on, just, what I'm looking for. This year, I'm really focusing on, trying to buy rentals and trying to keep everything, and then, figure out in a year or two if I want to do this, or if I want to do this at less volume, or kind of have that freedom. But so I wholesale a lot. I don't do major rehabs because I'm not good at them and want nothing to do with them and don't like managing contracts. So yeah, most of what I'm doing is, I'll either wholesale it. If I buy a, kind of newer, nicer house, I'll do a really, quick flip, like floors and paint, maybe a roof. The things that are easy and that I have, good contractors for.
Yeah, instead of gut job and
plumbing, foundation, electrical, I'll either just throw it on the market or I'll wholesale it, something like that.
Yeah, I've done.
Depends.
Yeah, dude, I've done gut rehabs, and they half gut rehabs, and that business, dude, is a whole nother animal. I mean, I have one right now where, we rehabbed. It was like one of those rehabs where like it's some mixed use property. It's not just a single family house, and like I thought it was going to be X, and it doubled like in a matter of 2 weeks, and I'm like, fuck, like, you know what I mean? Like, so rehabbing, I always say to people, is like, that's a completely different business than like the actual, like, I'm marketing for sellers, I'm closing deals business. So if you're going to get into rehabbing, you got to know what you're getting into, and you really have to have a good network of like the secret to rehabbing I've found is that you got to have a solid lineup of contractors. So if guy number 1 fucks up, guy number 2 could step in there and clean up the mess. Because if you're like dependent on one contractor rehabbing, and at least up in where I do business, mostly in New York, the towns, like, what is the permit process like in Texas? Or are there even permits in Texas? You can just do whatever you want. Like, does that exist in San Antonio? Because in New York, that's a whole nother disaster.
Yeah, there definitely are. And in the past, probably few years, they've really cracked down on the permit process. Which is why another reason I don't really like projects that require permits. But they have so now they have a whole dedicated team that like just drives around and tries to find unpermitted work, and
red tag them.
Have to like jump through hoops if you like. So I bought one of the first flips I bought had stop work orders, and it was just like, I bought it with, hey, I'm going to do this right, everything. But it was a thing of like, all my fees were doubled. You get like the inspectors that like are harder to work with because they're in this special group. You get the contractors who charge you more because they're like, oh, we got to deal with that. So it's this whole thing of like, like being punished for like trying to like take over this project that wasn't done well and do it right. So it's kind of like, it's a thing I don't really like to deal with. I lost a ton of money on a gut rehab this year that was going to be my primary residence. And I just kind of let other people mess with them. And as we both know, if you buy a good deal, you don't have to rehab it. So
totally, dude. That's the key.
It may make sense to rehab it, but like, it's all about buying a good deal.
Dude, that's so true. And I've found too, like, if you're gonna rehab the property, like I just closed on a wholesale yesterday, and it was like, for me to rehab it would have been just absolutely moronic, because this is a crazy story, by the way. So I this doesn't happen that often. I sent a mailer out to the seller, and it was listed on the MLS. And normally when that happens a lot. Like, I don't really check. I'm like, dude, like it's listed, like let's not waste each other's time. And he's like, no, make me an offer. And I'm like, dude, it's listed for 210. I'm like, I can't pay 210. It hasn't sold yet, you know? And he's like, well, I need to sell. I'm like, bro, you got a realtor. Like, I don't want to like step on your realtor. He's like, no, forget about the realtor. He's like, make me an offer. And I'm like,
You're like, multiply it by 0.7. Let's do it.
yeah. I'm like, all right. So I was like, we ended up getting it for 140. It was listed for 210. And he got a mailer from me. So it's not like I saw this thing on the MLS. So I would have never known. And I closed on it, and it was a little sketchy, this property. I actually don't tell, I hope the buyer's not listening, but I never even got the utilities in my name. Somehow this guy Jimmy rigged the electric, and I never got the utilities in my name. So I don't even know what's going on with that property.
I'll pretend I've never done that.
Yeah, I just totally cowboy it up, dude. Like I got a huge, like I almost had a fine from the town because I let the grass grow 2 inches. Like, I'm just the biggest idiot like owner ever. Anyway, so I got it for 140. Yeah, and I walked the property and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna rehab this thing. Oh, I'm Tarek Al Musa, you know. And then I'm just like, okay, if I rehab this house, I'm gonna spend more money, take more risk, get a contractor involved, get the building department involved to make an extra 5 to 10 grand. I said, this is the stupidest thing ever. I said, all right, you know what we're gonna do? We're going to get all the shit out of the house. We're going to stick it on the market and we're going to sell it. So we stuck it right on the market. Didn't touch I didn't touch the thing. Like literally cleaned it out. Nothing. Zero. Zilch. And we sold it. It's a base hit deal. It's not a home run at all. But anyway, point of that is like, if I were to rehab that house, I would have made an extra 5 or 10 grand and had to deal with all this BS. But it was already in okay shape. And I've always found too, like with wholesaling, like if you can price that wholesale deal a little bit less than what you probably could sell it for, it is always going to sell because someone is always looking for like that kind of cheaper house that doesn't need a ton of work. At least in my area, I've found that too. I'm sure in San Antonio, right? If you like price it a little bit lower than like you might should, and then it's either going to bid up or it's going to sell in like a week, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, a lot of this stuff too, it's like you're opening it up to completely different buyers because you're getting the like handyman special type thing. I mean, I've sold really bad shape houses on the MLS too. Those like, if they're like dated and clean, like, you know, someone's paying 95% of ARV and they think they're getting a deal that they can like fix up and customize while they live in it or whatever. And you're like, hey, this is a lot better than any investor's going to pay. So, which I know you talk about this a lot, but I mean, I have friends in various groups. I'm like, man, you don't have to take everything down, but just that ability changes the game.
Dude, that's the key.
Like, because when I wholesale something now, I'm saying like, hey, this is the price. Like, if you want to buy it, and if you don't buy it, I'm going to take it down and put it on the market, or you know, sell it to one of the big wholesalers in town that sells things for more than I can, or you know, various options. But it's, you know, it's like no one's going to, you know, beat me up on prices. I mean, they try, and I'll just like, I won't sell you anything. I don't care, you know, because it's
totally.
So it's not even like you got to take everything down, but just having that ability and confidence to do it is going to make your wholesale fees higher too, which is crazy.
Bro, that what you just said is gold, and I hope the listeners re-listen to what you just said, because if you have the ability to close, whether you want to close or not, it even changes how you negotiate with other people. Like when I'm negotiating with a seller and I'm actually like going to be the buyer or can be the buyer, I'm more confident in my offer. But like if I have a deal where like I don't want to close on it for some reason, like maybe there's like some serious issues with the building, then like I'm like a little more timid when I negotiate because I know that I'm gonna have to have an end buyer, you know, ultimately be the decision maker. But yeah, man, wholesaling too. Like I've found, like I do a lot of it just because in my market, it's super like you can make a lot of money on these fees. And it's just the closing, it takes so long, and I still close on some stuff, but I've found wholesaling to be harder than I at least think wholesaling is harder from like logistics, like transaction logistics standpoint than just buying the house. And the reason I'm saying that is because if you're a newbie and you don't really know what you're doing, you're going to have a buyer try to beat you up. You're going to have a seller be a little skeptical about what you're doing. And you're trying to hold this deal together, especially if you're making a lot of money in the middle. It gets very hairy. I've had so many wholesale deals where
you're managing that whole, like, I don't want the seller to see the fee. I don't want this. You know, it's just all this like stuff that like, if I don't have to, I don't really want to deal with.
Yeah, dude.
Which there's times when I do, like, you know, I've one I'm wholesaling now, and like, cool, I don't want to own it. It's great. It'll be easy if title ever gets clear or whatever.
Yeah. Right.
You know, there's definitely ones where it's like, I just don't like managing all those, like, and feeling like I'm just like tiptoeing all the time when it's like, you know, I can buy it. It'll cost me a little more, but like, it's fine. But the other side of that too is like, if you're going to take stuff down, like you got to get a good deal. Like,
Yes.
I'm not one of those that's like, hey, I'll lock it up and see if I can move it for like $3,000.
Yeah.
Like I'm building in plenty of margin where it works for anything. Which like, so I'm not like overpaying and hoping someone bails me out. So, I mean, there's definitely, you know, that side of things too. And I think if you're actually buying and closing on things, and I tell people this too, I'm like, you want to not make $5,000 on a deal, like make offers with more margin built in, like, and stick to it. Like, like it sounds like simple and like stupid, but it's like, you want to make $30,000 on a deal, like build it into your offer and don't like waver from it. Like, and then stop wasting your time on like 6 deals to make what you can on like just one. Like,
Dude,
you're not going
that's
to get
gold.
everything, but like stop like discounting like what you're doing and, you know, trying to like, you know, squeeze a few grand out and like working yourself to death when it's not worth it.
Totally, dude. Totally.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I agree with you, dude. I agree 100%. And it's like people try to make a non-deal a deal and they try to put a square peg in a round hole. It's like, dude, just make more offers or whatever to get better at marketing, which we'll talk about in a minute. But make an offer that like makes sense. Like when I make an offer, like I'm like, this is the price. Like I just like, what is it worth? What is the work going to be? What is it worth as is? What are my carrying costs? What are my soft costs? How much do I want to make? And that's my offer. Like, I think a big thing with new investors is they're, and I get it because I've been there. They have no idea what to offer the seller because they have no idea what a deal is. So when I JV with the new investors, which has been a decent channel for me this year, the biggest value I can add is not teaching them how to talk to a seller or teaching them how to do direct mail or whatever. It's showing them what a deal is and why it's a deal. So they can go out and when they get their own opportunities, they can actually like say, oh, this is a deal because of X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? A lot of people are like, oh, hey, I got this property. And I'm like, this is not a deal and this is why. Or this is a deal and this is why. That's the hardest thing I see in new investors where like they want a JV. Like if someone's in San Antonio and they're brand new listening to this, I would link up with Aaron I would link up with Aaron and I'd like bring him deals and split deals with Aaron because you'll learn more working with someone who knows what they're doing on your first 5 or 10 deals than you will on your own. And that's the hardest skill to learn in the beginning. But once you learn it, it's like riding a bike. You'll never forget how to do it.
Well, and that's the thing. Like when I worked for that broker, like, yeah, it's for me to sit here and be like, oh, he took half my deals, like, or, you know, half the split. But it's like, I got a hard money lender out of that. I got great connections with the title company that I still use for every deal. Like, and like the confidence of like, okay, this is what a deal looks like. This is what the numbers look like. All of that like, I still buy stuff and almost everything I buy, the moment I get the keys and walk through it, I'm like, holy shit, what did I just buy? There's always this like moment of like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
Dude. Did this a lot worse from the time I looked at it or
dude, that's so true.
But it's a lot scarier on the first or second or, you know, third. And then now it's like, you know, I'll make offers sight unseen. I don't like doing that, but I will. And it's fine, you know, but it's still that moment of like, once you buy that thing and you walk through it, you're like, oh, wow. Was I crazy? And then you sell it and it works out, you know, kind of how
you do better than you think. Yeah. It's so true, bro. I did a house, dude. It's so funny. I've done probably like 35, 40 properties in Dallas, which is like, you know, 3 hours away from where, I don't know how, 4 hours away. And we would buy. Yeah. Yeah. It was a good, dude. That was a good run.
There's geography skills. We don't really have those in Texas. So
yeah. I had a good run up there. This is before like cold calling was like everyone was cold calling and stuff. So like I was just basically pulling like vacant houses. No one was marketing to them. And I was locking them up on the phone. And I found a guy who I was JVing with down there. And we're making a ton of money together. And we would close like just all cash because like it was so cheap compared to anything I've ever seen like in New York. Yeah. So we're just like putting 15 grand each, like buying a house for 30, cleaning it up, selling it for 65. And like, I remember some of these properties we would buy, like we would just close on like in cash. We never got a loan or anything. Cause these were like cheap hood houses. Yeah. And like one time I went down there and I walked the property and I was like, holy shit, dude, we literally bought this thing. Like it's a disaster. Like, are we gonna be able to make money on it? Like this is in the hood. Like, but like I've always found that real estate is just a function of price. So if you got a good price on it and you sell it at a good price, doesn't matter if there's, a gang down the street or if there's squatters in there, someone will always buy the property. It's like supply and demand. And I've just
Yeah, as
learned
long
that.
as you're in a big enough market,
Yeah.
like my small town I'm from in Ohio, that would maybe look different than San Antonio. But like if something's priced right in San Antonio, it sells. Like there's no
Yeah.
there's no other way about it. It's like if it's not selling, like there's something wrong. And if you price it right, it sells. So
Yeah.
I mean, as long as the
That's so
market's
true.
big enough, I mean, it's kind of like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Like I bought a house last year that I thought I was overpaying at 32, ended up selling it on the market for 67.
Oh my God.
For what it was worth, but it was like one of those where I'm like, I think it's a deal at this, but I'll buy it and see how good of a deal it is, So, but yeah, I mean, for sure, if like things aren't moving, it's a price thing.
Yeah. And that's the thing I like about your area too. I mean, I don't know it that well, but I mean, at least like in an area where you're paying those types of prices, maybe sub 300 grand. If you buy a doozy and you have to rent it out, you can at least keep it as a rental and it like won't fuck you up. But like in San Diego or even in Long Island or Westchester, New York, dude, some of these properties, like if you can't sell them for some reason, you can't keep them as a rental because the costs to own the property are so much higher than what you would get in income. You're kind of screwed. So that's the one thing about some of these high end areas that I operate in. Like
Yeah.
if you buy that deal and you can't sell it, it's very hard to keep it as a rental. Now there are areas in those in those locations where you can keep them as rentals, but like I have a house right now where I'm wholesaling it. If I were to rehab that deal, like the ARV is like 675. Like you're not keeping that as a rental.
Yeah, you're not getting $6,000 in rent, right?
No way. You get like maybe 3,500, $4,000, but then you're carrying it anyway. So that's the cool thing about like Dallas and not, you can't really do this in Austin. Austin's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know, why is Austin so fucking expensive, dude? Like I don't understand it. It's just in between San Antonio and Dallas. So what the hell's the
I have
matter
no
with that place?
clue.
Crazy, dude. Did you ever do
And we're
like
not
marketing there?
quite getting the craziness that Austin gets, but like I've had listings with like cash offers over ask, which isn't very normal for San Antonio. But yeah, Austin's a little scary to me. San Antonio is like a little more calculated and
Yeah.
growth and stuff. But like some of the stuff people are buying and selling in Austin seems kind of like West Coast market style.
Yeah, dude. It's like California.
It doesn't really make sense. And it scares me if I don't understand why something's doing what it's doing.
Yeah, dude. In Austin, I've noticed too, is a very tight town. Like it's not like San Antonio and Dallas are more like sprawling.
Yeah,
Austin is like, yeah, you got like city center, and then like there's like Pflugerville, and there's some towns outside there, but it's not like the big cities. Like DFW is massive, San Antonio's pretty big, Houston's ginormous, Austin's tight. So it's funny.
Yeah.
The one property I did in Austin, this is back. Have you ever heard of Skip Genie before?
Yep.
So Larry, Larry,
Yeah.
the owner, he like taught me basically how to like find these vacant properties. This is before cold calling was huge. So I found this property in Austin, and it was a total beater, and it was kind of in a bad area, but like in Austin, there's really no bad areas. So I remember we got it under contract, and I didn't know what I was doing. Me and Larry JV the deal. Dude, it had so many title issues. It took a year, literally like a full calendar year, to get it to actually be able to close because there was 21 heirs involved, and there was like 16 heirship affidavits. It was this craziest like title mess, and that's how I know Austin, Texas, from that deal. So it's just,
and that probably went up like 50 grand in value in that year you had it under contract.
Yeah, it was a good deal. Yeah, we did well on it. It was a wholesale, but yeah, it was crazy how expensive it was. But the thing I like about Texas too, like you could do this in New York and California, you can't do this, which is a problem. The heirship affidavits, when you get these title issues, are so awesome because in California, like you can't do that. You have to probate it, and then like it takes really long. In New York and Texas, you don't have to probate some of these properties. You can just do heirship affidavits, and you could close in like 4 or 5 weeks. It's amazing. You guys do a lot of those down in San Antonio?
Yeah. So, so I've had two recently that were probates, and they started in January, and everything's crazy backed up right now. So it's like, it took them 6 months to get through the probate, but like, yeah, if it's something that, you can clear up with affidavits of heirship, and the title company I use is great at doing that. Like, people ask me title questions. I'm like, I don't really know. Like, I know basics. but like, I just rely on them to kind of tell me what I need and take care of stuff. And they're really good at it. But yeah, I mean, I've closed stuff with affidavits of airship in, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, it's
I think
quick.
get people to sign and get people together. It's like, it can be as quick as, whatever. And we can close pretty quick in Texas. It's not, something that's super long and drawn out.
Yeah, it's quick closings. That's just, I've noticed that too down there. It's funny. We had a property. This is crazy. I have a lot of like weird shit that happened in Texas. Dude, there was this wholesale house we had, and it was like like most of these deals were like in the hood, like just scary, scary, scary. And we had this, it was like a small wholesale fee. And I remember like we were supposed to close on like a Friday. And I remember on like a Wednesday, I wanted to just double check and make sure that they're still like, because it was like the offer was basically like, you're going to get X amount of dollars above whatever's owed in taxes. So like there was really no purchase price. It was like $3,000 or whatever net to seller. And yeah, I love those. It's like you write in the contract and they're like, what the fuck's this? And then the recorded sales price is like $3,000. And people are like, what? Like, cause like there's no purchase price. Anyway.
That's awesome.
So dude, the seller had a scumbag relative and they sold the property underneath them and they falsified affidavits because I saw the taxes got paid right away to this title company. And I'm like, oh my God. So like the seller's like relative committed fraud and there was this whole thing. And I don't know. I feel like in New York that would never like fly. Like in Texas, I feel like you could do like more crazy shit down there. It's just like the Wild West.
Yeah, one of our gurus was probably like teaching that.
Yeah, right. So anyway, so what are you doing to get deals? I mean, obviously we talked about what you're doing with your deals. What are you doing to like acquire properties in San Antonio in 2021? With the market being so strong right now.
Yeah, that is a good question. And marketing for me, I feel like is always a moving target. I'm fairly well plugged in with people kind of all over, both locally and across the US that are doing this kind of stuff. And it seems to be cyclical. It seems to be like certain things work in certain areas and work for certain periods of time. So I'm probably changing things up more than I should. I've done some mail. I still do mail, but it's very targeted. It's not mass mail.
It's like me. I love mass mail. That's like my strategy. I just blast people.
But I mean, mainly like I buy quite a few deals from Google ads. I did TV ads for a while and I've kind of paused that. I've had cold callers. I've had texters. I've done a little bit of everything. Honestly, this year and kind of my conversation with you and end of last year, beginning of this year, I don't remember that was super helpful. One, I was kind of before that in this mode of like, I want to do 100 deals a year and I want like this huge staff. And then the end of last year, I had a few like really slow, really rough months. And my burn rate was like, there was a few months when I was spending like 30 grand a month with like marketing.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Like, all in. Yeah.
Like, you don't do a deal in a month and that hurts. And then that
hurts.
And it was hard with employees too, because it was kind of a thing where like the guy I had was pretty decent, but like I was still better at closing deals. I was still better at talking to sellers. So it was kind of this like ongoing like, training and this stuff when it's like, okay, maybe I just need to hire something else because I'm good at this and I enjoy it. So my conversation with you was super helpful. Not that you asked me to talk about this, but I've seen recently you plugging your coaching. And I think that would be super helpful. I think I snuck in and got a free call, but no, it was super helpful because one, like I was just kind of in this turning point of which I know I'm kind of getting away from the marketing stuff and I'll get back to it. But I was kind of this turning point of like, okay, I'm doing a lot of deals, but it's just like I'm not making money. Like,
yeah, bro.
It's this like hamster wheel, and like I'm all about like a deal comes in, like throw it on to marketing. Like let's double.
Yep, just pump it into marketing. Like,
who cares? Whatever. So I'm not like very versed. So, but talking to you and like, and some other friends and stuff, like there's some people that are like doing like serious business as like small operations, which was like enlightening to me too. And hearing people kind of talk about like, what business to look like do I want to have like a payroll of like 30 grand a month and do like a bajillion deals? Like that like just sounds like a job and like stressful.
Yeah, it's like you're in corporate America again, but you happen to own the damn thing.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's
you're like,
essentially
fuck that.
what I had created. So it's kind of this sitting down and figuring out like what do I want like business and like life to look like. And now it's like, cool, if I want to sleep till 11 one day, like I do it. Like it's fine. Like if I want to,
You're not getting on the L10 meeting, like, oh my God, you know,
no,
you got your
so
9 VAs. Yeah.
so that was super helpful. Like, kind of hearing someone who's, you know, I didn't know that I just assumed you kind of had like, big staff and team and like, office with like pictures on the wall and like ringing the gong all day and, stuff. But,
Yeah, no,
I
man.
mean, as I've talked to other people that it's like, hey, like, I don't really want that. Like, I just want to do what I'm doing. Like, as more deals come, great. So I kind of, step back a little bit. But one thing you also told me that a few things, right? That I thought were super helpful. You're like, well, if you don't have staff, like you can spend that money on marketing and then like you can cherry pick the good deals. Like you don't have to like feel like you got to work everything. Which I felt like was super helpful because I'm like, oh, if I'm not paying a salary, I can spend money on like the more expensive marketing that's like higher barrier, that's like better leads that aren't the ones that are like calling me, cussing me out.
Yep.
Which is why, so I do a lot of pay-per-click, which isn't cheap. And I don't get a ton of leads, but when I do,
they're hot. You manage it yourself or do you have a firm manage it for you?
I have a firm manage it.
Yeah, it makes sense. Totally.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what I'm doing with that.
Yeah, me too. I fucking burned so much money doing that. I said, fuck this, dude. This is just crazy.
Yeah. So that was one thing. And then, kind of, I know I talked to you about like, hey, what are you marketing? And you just kind of put this idea in my head of like, you got to figure out like, there's something in your market that people aren't hitting. Like there's something that like either people don't know how to buy it or if there's value in it or, it's not hitting their normal list, whatever. So, and that's the kind of stuff I mail. Like I mail like weird stuff that people like don't want or don't know what to do with or don't know like if it's a deal or stuff. So my marketing kind of as it stands today is, a lot of pay-per-click. I do, retargeting stuff with Facebook. I had cold callers until recently. I kind of turned that off. Did some TV, which I like from, you eliminate a lot of competition, but like I was buying houses from people like in the middle of nowhere, or like, they don't have cars. Like I Ubered a guy to a closing and then it was like, the only way he moved out was when like my cleanup people were like literally moving stuff out of his house. So it's kind of those that like, there's not competition, but they're not the dude.
There's a reason there's not competition because the guy hasn't brushed his teeth since the freaking Bush administration.
But it's kind of amazing. So like every time they call in, you hear like blaring TV in the back, like without like every single time. But yeah, so I mean, my marketing today is mainly Google ads, and then I'm honestly trying to focus more on super niche kind of like problem properties and figuring out systems for that, and then stuff that I don't think people like or know or market to.
Totally, bro.
Whatever.
That's the gold, bro.
I've recently been buying trailers, which crazy, but they're kind of fun. So
in trailer parks, or you're buying trailers on their own land?
Trailers on land.
Okay, so that's much better. Yeah, because if you're buying in a manufactured home park, you're at the mercy of the company. You're fucked. Yeah, they're not worth shit.
Yeah, don't want anything to do with that. But trailers on land are great. So I've bought, I guess, 4 of those in the last month or so.
How are they going, by the way? I've never taken down a trailer before. Not because I wouldn't want to, but I just never really got the leads.
Oh man, you should. They're great. I should stop telling people this and just.
I see your Instagram, bro. You're always at like a mobile home. I'm like, this guy's a fucking savage.
Dude, it's so fun. So one, they're just like, I feel like there's things in this business where it's like, I don't understand and I don't have to, but like, whatever, sell me it. And that's like trailers. Like, I don't know why people are buying them. I don't know why people want to live in them, but for some reason they do. Like I've like talk to sellers that live in really nice subdivisions here that are selling their house to go live in a trailer, which is
mind-boggling. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, what in the, like, you have a $250,000 house in a nice area, and you're gonna move onto your like daughter's land and live in a trailer and add an addition to your trailer. That doesn't make any sense, but people do it. So I mean, part of it's like, so some of these, it's like, they're, how do you value them? Do you value just the land? Do you value just the trailer? And it's like, I don't know, figure it out. Like, and then people are like, well, there aren't comps. And I'm like, well, I don't like, or like, how do you finance it? And it's like, I don't care if it finances. Look at all this stuff selling for cash. Like, so I mean, it's but one thing I really like is our property taxes are like crazy high. On trailers, they're almost nothing. So they make sense as rentals. They, you can flip them, like
Seller finance them, dude. You could do wraparounds on them, bro.
Yeah.
There's a lot
So
more.
yeah, they're good for seller finance. I mean, they're kind of a lot of strategies, and a lot of these are on pretty nice pieces of land, and there's just not the kind of like, I'm not walking into a trailer and seeing the stacks and stacks of mail or that kind of stuff either. So those to me are kind of fun.
That's awesome, bro.
People
That's
think I'm
awesome.
crazy, but it's kind of just figuring out some of the more unique niche stuff that everyone's not hitting every day, and like everyone's not teaching, or people don't understand, or they don't know how to value things. Like I love buying deals that I don't know what they're worth, but like,
no, I know what you're saying, because that eliminates a lot of the shenanigans, because everyone's like, if you're buying a tract home in a homogenous neighborhood where all the houses are the same, everyone and the guru's brother and the guru's stepdaughter, they all want to buy that property. But when you're buying a property that has unique inventory, or you're buying an area with unique inventory, we're going to go at 2:30. Yeah, 2:30. Sorry, these guys want to go mini golfing.
All good.
So it's harder to value it, like you said, which eliminates competition, which is great. Sure. And that's why I like the Northeast to buy real estate, because our inventory is not homogenous. You could have a Cape Cod next to a freaking house built in 1900 versus built next to a freaking new construction. So it's hard to comp properties. So a lot of investors don't really know what they're looking at, which is a great strategy. Being different is always going to be something that will work.
Well, it's like that kind of stuff where it's like, it's a little scary, but you're buying something with like big upside. Like I'm buying a house that overlooks one of our lakes here, and it's like, I'm actually taking that down with a partner, and we're like looking at it and we're like, well, comps don't really exist, and we can't even use anything a year old right now because like things have climbed like crazy. So you're kind of like one of those, you're like, I'm like pretty sure this is where it's worth, but like that's all just like experience and just kind of intuition of like, this is what I think it's worth based on what I know.
Totally, bro.
Like that with big upside, and it's like, okay, if you're you're conservative with it, but it's usually going to turn out a little better than you were kind of thinking, which is awesome.
Totally, bro. So true. And I've found too, like, especially like in your area, like you're buying a mobile home. What is the proper word? A manufactured home, what they say or whatever. Like they're not that expensive ultimately. So if you are wrong on your numbers, you can always keep it as a rental. You have that rental parachute, on some of those properties, you know what I mean? Which is great. And there's a guy, there's a big guy in San Antonio, and he's made a fortune just from seller financing houses, and just, that's his whole niche, and I see that down in Texas. There's a lot of people doing that, and there's just so much opportunity there. But the key takeaway for the listeners is always find a way to be different, and different is what gets you, different strategy gets you different results ultimately. So, man, I could talk to you for hours. I think the listeners, have learned a lot about you and your business, and I think they've extracted a lot of value from this. So I want to make sure I respect your time and we keep it within, the 45, 55 minutes here. So Aaron, if people want to, let's say there's a new investor listening and they're in the San Antonio area and they want to get in touch with you, maybe they have deals for you, maybe, there's just an opportunity for them to, learn from you, or, JV, whatever the case, how would people get in touch with you? Because I know you got a great thing going down there in Texas.
Yeah, for sure. Probably the best way is on Instagram. You could probably search my name. There's not any Aaron Bihls out there, but my Instagram is Bihlster1, BIHLSTER1. And you'll see all kinds of my shenanigans with houses,
Mobile homes.
talking to sellers, and like, me jumping in a nasty pool I just bought and all kinds of nonsense. But I don't know. At the end of the day, I try to have fun with this stuff. So, I like doing this. I don't want it to be like corporate jobs. So, and I try to give people like a real perspective of like, hey, it's not just like gurus like cashing checks, but like some of the like nonsense and fun side of it too.
I love it, bro. Yeah, you got a great thing going on your Instagram page. Definitely keep putting out the content you got, man. It's awesome. Man. I love watching it. So we'll make sure we have that in the show notes. And dude, this was a lot of fun, man. Love to have you back on again in the future and get some updates on some stuff. And dude, let's definitely stay in touch. And if there's anything I can do to ever help you, man, reach out. You know how to get in touch with me.
Yep, absolutely. Appreciate it, man.